Again, thank you everyone for tuning in to us. We are Vida for those of you coming to us from Eventbrite. We are a life, health and wellness, leadership, and career coaching company. And my name is Justice, and I'm a relationship strategist here on the team. And what that means is when you are ready to have a conversation with someone on our team, you have a half-hour complimentary call where we ask you questions to dive deeper into what's going on in your life and what your goals are. And then at the end of that hour or half hour, we will recommend a coach or coaches on our team that we think are most appropriately suited to help you accomplish those based on their particular backgrounds, personalities, and skill sets. So with that being said, if anyone has anything top of mind that they would like to go ahead and share, I'm going to go ahead and post the link to my calendar. It is first come, first serve. And then anyone who comes to us from an event, they get their first session free. So it's something to consider as you're budgeting and things of that nature. With that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Coach Amy. And Amy, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Justice. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy. I am a career and success coach. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I have 30 years, yikes, of consulting experience, largely with big multinational companies in the area of marketing and communications. And during that time, I've had the opportunity to coach clients in a variety of ways, everything from coaching them on their business strategy to helping them build their teams to leadership. And the part of the job that I loved the most was coaching. And so I decided I wanted to become a coach. So I'm certified in career and success coaching, and I am also certified as a positive psychology practitioner. And what that basically means is that a lot of my coaching leans into my clients' strengths, those things that they are inherently strong at that can help them to grow and develop in the areas that they choose to grow and develop. So I'm happy to be with you all here today. And we are going to jump forward to discuss the joy of being wrong, which I know for many of you sounds like an oxymoron, but it's a thing. And I hope by the end of our conversation today, you will find some joy in the potential and inevitable moments that we all are wrong. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between right and wrong. This isn't the stuff you learned in kindergarten. It's about how being right and being wrong are essential to our human development. How wrong makes us feel, why it's right to be wrong sometimes, and then inevitably, when we are wrong, how do we recover? So that's what we're going to go through today. If you have questions, just jump in and ask, and let's get going. So I love this quote from Thomas Edison because it really does speak to the value of being wrong. Every time you try something and have a setback, every wrong conversations, the ones that don't go well, is an opportunity to take a step forward because those are profound moments of learning. And so Thomas Edison had many more inventions that failed than those that succeeded. But he would not have been able to achieve the success he did achieve were it not for the mistakes that he made along the way. So most of the time we're right? I mean, being right is actually an affirmation of our intellectual capabilities, our competence, how perceptive we are as humans. And the cool thing is being right is instant ego gratification. Most of us go through life assuming that we are basically right. Basically all the time about everything. We choose the right brand of toothpaste. We had the right thing for breakfast in the morning. Our assessment of other people, when we make that friend who turns out to be exactly who we hope they would be, that's a moment of rightness. Our memories, how we recall things, our grasp of the facts around whether it's our workplace or something that we've read in the news, we assume that we're right. And in fact, that faith in our own rightness is warranted because when you think about it, most of us get through the day making decisions every day fairly well. So that suggests that we are routinely right about a lot of things. Taken together, These moments of rightness give us a sense of security, a sense of our place in the world, a sense of who we are, and they give us countless small joys. It's fun to be right. It feels good to be right. More important, when we are right, it affirms our sense of being smart, competent, trustworthy, and in tune with our environment. And more importantly, being right often keeps us alive. Our very existence depends on our ability to reach accurate conclusions about the world around us. It's imperative for our survival, essentially. And it's also gratifying for our ego. I'm interested, weirdly enough, in the opposite of all that. I'm interested in being wrong and how we as individuals cope when our convictions collapse out from under us, when we are either a little bit wrong or profoundly wrong. When we are wrong, think about it. It can sometimes leave us feeling silly, feeling stupid, maybe feeling ashamed. Think about those times when you were in school and you got that paper back. I mean, none of you did, but I would get that paper back that was full of red lines and mistakes and edits that needed to be made. Getting that paper back would make us cringe. You always see in movies when the student gets that paper back, they look at it and they turn it over on their desk. It's like they're almost afraid to see it. We slouch down in our seats. It makes our hearts sink, and sometimes it actually makes us mad. So when you think about how tuned we are into being right, you would think that that's what is the key to success. But this quote is also great. Success makes a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose. In other words, that they will always be right. And when they are faced with wrong, it can have really, really profound impact. So the biggest barrier to mastery is, in fact, perfection. So when we think about that, one of the biggest challenges that gets in the way of us taking risks, of healthy striving, is the desire to not only be right, but to be perfect, which I think we all know perfection is really unachievable. And when we're confronted with the realization that not only are we not perfect, but perhaps we made a serious mistake along the way, we find ourselves feeling less than. Healthy striving is important to our sense of self-esteem, our confidence, our ability to feel like we have a growing, moving place in the world. But healthy striving is also internally focused. It relies on us wanting to strive, wanting to give ourselves the internal pat on the back, if you will, when we do well, to take that pride when we've achieved a goal, but also to forgive ourselves when we've made a mistake. Perfectionism, on the other hand, is driven by external factors. What will others think? And it tells us when we don't achieve that level of perfection, that not only did we make a mistake, but our mistakes are personal defects. Not that what we said or did was wrong, but that we are inherently wrong in some way. And that leads to some really bad feelings. So what I call the wrong feelings they're a constellation. They run from the gamut from shame to guilt to humiliation, embarrassment. And while it's not on the screen, it also can often lead to anger. When we make a mistake, we say or do something that we wish we hadn't, that was inherently wrong, we often do feel a sense of shame. You find out, here's a great example, you find out that the new young person that started 6 months ago at your workplace and does report to you is quitting. And they've gone to your manager and told them that the reason they are quitting is because you are a harsh manager. You don't empower them. They don't feel good working for you. And now the company is losing talent that they thought had promise. So your boss takes you aside and has a conversation with you. Hopefully it's a good coaching conversation to guide you in ways that you could perhaps empower future employees or address some of the concerns that this employee raised. But they take you aside, they share the news, and you immediately feel a sense of shame. And I am specifically saying feel a sense of shame. Shame comes on in a rush. It hits us and, we can feel our skin color. We can feel heat. Sometimes we feel it literally in our gut. You feel that shame, and then what does that lead you to think about yourself? Are you questioning your capabilities as a manager, or even whether you're a good person? Sometimes shame moves very quickly to guilt. Guilt is slightly more productive in that guilt comes with what could I have done differently? It gives you the opportunity to reflect and reconsider. So you've had a hard day, you've had that conversation with your manager, and now you're going to a staff meeting. It's an all-staff meeting, and the announcement is made about this young potential star who is leaving the company. And while nobody told anybody in the room why this person was leaving, you feel as if all eyes are on you, that people are looking at you, beginning to whisper, you're feeling a bit humiliated, and you're beginning to also feel a little defensive and angry. The reason for the person leaving shouldn't be well known by everyone, and you're angry about that. And besides, let's face it, she wasn't as talented as everyone thinks, and she's not that big a loss. Those thoughts enter your mind because humiliation requires self-protection, and anger is often a form of self-protection. So now you're feeling embarrassed, humiliated. Your mind kicks into protective mode, and you start to tear up and perhaps get a little red in the face. And now you're really embarrassed because you've let your emotions show. Everyone does sometimes, but it doesn't feel good in the moment. And embarrassment, while it's something that everyone experiences, when it's connected to a feeling of shame, it feels particularly challenging. So those are just some of the feelings that come with feeling wrong, like feeling like you've made a mistake. Can you guys relate to that? I know I can. Well, there are some great things about being wrong. First of all, let's talk about what the fact that we are wrong about what it means to be wrong. That's a lot of wrong in one sentence. So the capacity to be wrong is crucial to human cognitive development. Being wrong in the perfect world is the opportunity to stretch, to examine our souls, to really get to know ourselves and understand who we are as people, and to reflect a sense of humanity. And learning how to be wrong opens up some really great opportunities to evolve, to strengthen our empathy, and to really stretch our imagination. It also is an opportunity to practice courage and optimism. We currently experience wrong as shameful, embarrassing, a judgment of not just the error, but of ourselves. But we're wrong about what it means to be wrong. Far from being a sign of intellectual inferiority, the capacity to make a mistake is crucial to human development. Far from being a moral flaw, it is inextricable from some of our most humane and honorable qualities: empathy, optimism, imagination, courage. And far from being a mark of indifference or intolerance, wrongness is a vital part of how we learn and change. Thanks to our mistakes, we can revise our understanding of ourselves and amend our ideas about the world and the people around us. Here's how I think about being wrong. However disorienting it is, difficult, humbling, being wrong has great power to teach us not only of who we are, but to teach us who we are capable of being. So 5 great things about being wrong. First, when we're open to mistakes, we learn deeper. If we try hard to avoid mistakes, we aren't open to getting the information we need in order to do better. Research has shown that those who are afraid to make mistakes, ultra-perfectionists, if you will, perform worse in writing tasks, as an example. They perform worse than those who aren't as worried about being flawless. And the reason for that is that because they have to practice writing, and the actual act of practicing leads you open to making mistakes. More importantly, they fear receiving any kind of negative feedback. So they don't learn where they went wrong or how to get better. And so they stay in the same place, not achieving their goal of perfection, not moving forward at all. Being wrong also allows us to learn deeper. We don't just learn more when we are open to making a mistake. We learn deeper. Research also tells us that if we're only concerned about getting the right answer, we don't always take the time to learn the underlying concepts that help us truly understand what we're trying to figure out. But to put it in more human terms, if we're worried about having that wrong conversation with somebody who is on the opposite side of our point of view, if we don't take that risk, we never learn more about that person. We don't understand what underpins their point of view. We just avoid the conversation. And that's an opportunity to keep things safe and not to make a mistake, but it misses the opportunity to learn about someone in a very different way. Mistakes need to be seen as not as a failure to learn, but as a guide to what we still need to learn. Mistakes can also help us change deeply embedded norms. So, for example, it was discovered in aviation that there were mistakes that were happening that were easily addressed, but that junior pilots were afraid to speak to their more senior pilots about those mistakes. They were afraid that they would not be heard or that they were just simply intimidated. And the same thing often happens in fields like medicine. But by examining why those accidents were happening, what changed was that hierarchies were changed. So those established norms were evolved to enable a more fluid, flexible learning environment, giving everybody a voice. Mistakes also keep us humble. And that's important. When we think we're above making mistakes or that others around us are above making mistakes and we don't give them the permission to do so, we stop questioning and challenging. That leads to complacency and sometimes really bad decisions. Overconfidence leads us to be blind to the limits of our expertise, and underconfidence leads us to ignore the possibilities of things we could explore. When we make mistakes, we gain insight from them. We have more empathy for others. Again, going back to that research that I like so much, research has shown that men in particular tend to become more understanding of other people's mistakes when they're asked to remember a time that they messed up in a similar manner. We also learn to bounce back. This upside to mistakes is perhaps the most important. Knowing how to fail and come back, work harder, fall down, and get up again is crucial to success in all areas. It's called resilience, and everyone from child development experts to employers know that it's probably the single most important difference between those who accomplish their goals and those who don't. Accepting mistakes is not the same as loving them. Nobody really enjoys making a mistake, despite the fact that joy is the headline of this session. Few people are happy when they mess up, whether it's a big mistake or a small mistake. And accepting imperfection is certainly not about being lazy or careless. However, we need to believe in our guts, not just in our minds, that it's all right to stumble, make a mistake, and try again. In fact, it's not just okay, it's necessary. We're all going to make mistakes. It's just a question of choosing how we approach them. Are we going to finger point and pretend they didn't happen, or are we going to take responsibility and lean into them and learn more about what we could have done differently, how we could have thought about something differently so that we learn and grow from that moment? And the thing we have to remember is we have the choice to embrace mistakes and being wrong differently. The only option we do not have is perfection. So we need to put that off the table. So what are the ways we handle making a mistake or hearing that we're wrong? Well, I'm going to walk you through a client who maybe experienced all four of the situations that are on the screen. Excuse me. So let's talk about Brian. That's not his real name. Brian he's a client of mine. He was working with me on his leadership skills. His focus was on preparing himself to make a transition to his next level. He had not been awarded a promotion yet, but he was hoping that it would happen. While we were working on this, it was time for his mid-year review. He was hoping that the promotion would come after his mid-year review and that he would be ready for the next level. But during his promotion, he heard from his boss that while he was doing a lot of things really, really well, she needed to see him step up in the area of being willing to bring ideas to the group and to work with the group to collaborate on bringing those ideas to his clients. So he was disappointed in hearing that. He thought he was ready. He was hoping to hear in that session that you don't need to work on anything. You are ready for that promotion. And that didn't happen. But he did see an opportunity to show, frankly, his boss, in his opinion, that she was wrong and that he could collaborate with others and bring these ideas forth. So he knew that there was a meeting coming up. It was a staff meeting. And during that staff meeting, he was going to present an idea. So the staff meeting was 3 days later. He was going to work on that, and he was going to bring an idea forth that he thought was great for clients and that he hoped everybody would work on with him. So as he didn't really give thought to the fact that 3 days is not a lot of time. He worked really doggedly on the presentation and thought he was very ready. He goes into the staff meeting and he starts to present his idea, very proud of himself that he was standing up and doing something that he doesn't usually do in these staff meetings. And a colleague challenged his idea and basically told him that they didn't think it was viable because his proposal was based on flawed information. Brian immediately felt embarrassed, humiliated, angry at the colleague for calling him out. So he began to deny that his information was flawed and started to prove why he was right. Needless to say, the rest of the meeting did not go very well. Brian felt attacked, felt like his colleague's comments were a personal attack on not only his thinking, but on him as an individual. He felt like he wasn't being given a chance. And he basically shut down for the rest of the day and probably a little bit longer. Thing is, when we aim for perfection and fall short, we see our mistakes and failures as personal defects. So we either avoid trying new things or we make that moment of wrongness an enduring perception of who we are. And that's how Brian felt as he was going through this moment. So if you're Brian, what do? Are we just going to ignore this moment and pretend it didn't happen? Well, it was very clear it did happen, and he was feeling it very intensely. He almost didn't know how to engage with the team after he had this experience. Maybe Brian could tell himself that it was his colleague's fault. He shouldn't have, called him out that way. Maybe he should have spoken to him privately, and then maybe the rest of the meeting wouldn't have gone so badly. So it wasn't entirely Brian's fault. Maybe he could tell himself that there was shared responsibility here, or even go so far as to blame someone else. Should he presume that this promotion is never going to happen and give up and stop taking risks? Maybe he should just focus on what he knows, and he was doing well. His boss said that he had great potential, but that there was this one thing that he needed to work on. Maybe he should just be comfortable in what he's doing today. What do you do if you're Brian? Any ideas? Well, I'll tell you what Brian did. Brian went through all of those emotions and all of those, considered all of this, and then he called me and we talked it through. And Brian realized that there was a different way forward. And what he ended up doing was he went to that colleague who told him that his information was flawed and learned more about why it was flawed. And the two of them agreed that they would work on the proposal together. What was great about that was in that moment, Brian was able to show his colleague that he was open to hearing a different point of view, that he could acknowledge where he may have gone awry. And the colleague told Brian's boss how Brian was collaborating with his moving forward. He didn't get the promotion the next day. He got the promotion 6 months later. And it was after he had proved that he could not only take that step, but learn to collaborate with others in a new and different way. So what are we going to do? We use our moment of wrongness as a spark of discovery, something new about ourselves. We learn something new about ourselves or something new about the world. And again, Brian was aiming for perfection. He was aiming for that promotion. The only option we do not have is perfection. We may fail along the way. So you were wrong. What's next? What do you do? First, you have to give yourself permission to make mistakes. We're all going to do it, and you have to acknowledge it. You can be disappointed. You could be sad that you made the mistake, but it's okay. Tell yourself it's okay and really believe it. And then move forward and practice open mindedness. Think about what you heard from others. Think about the person who you engaged with where you said something perhaps that was wrong, or the project that you did that didn't turn out the way you expected it would. Practice open mindedness and learn from others. Reexamine your position. We all come to the table with ideas that we are so sure of, but maybe we were coming at it from the wrong angle, or maybe there's a different way to think about it. It may be that you still feel that the way you approached it was the right approach for the moment, but how would you do it differently? Acknowledge the moment and move forward. And we'll dig a little deeper into all of that. So first, let's talk about giving yourself permission to make mistakes. You have to separate mistakes from self-worth, and you have to celebrate and respect the try. It takes courage to do something that doesn't feel like you're going to be perfect in it. So from earliest childhood, we are indoctrinated to believe that getting things right, whether it's our grades, sports, video games, whatever, are signs of our worth as individuals. The more you got right, the more stars you got. And if you get things wrong, you're simply not as good. That's how we're indoctrinated as small children. A culture of rightness can really impact our self-esteem. And if fear of failure can impact our ability to take risks and stretch our creativity. So rather than leaning into our courage and initiative and that risk-taking, what we tend to do is suppress it for fear that our efforts will be wrong, that we won't get it right the first time, and that in doing so, perhaps we'll be less than worthy. This mindset serves as a barrier to trying, expressing opinions, and putting yourself out into the world. By giving yourself permission to not always get it right, it doesn't mean you're not going to try your hardest and do your best, but you can more easily accept when a mistake happens, or that you were wrong in a particular moment, but that you are not wrong. Just that moment wasn't the best. And even when things don't go as planned, you need to take the moment to say, wow, I tried. And that was hard, but I did try, and give yourself credit for that. And if the situation was one in which you felt that you were really taking a risk, take a moment to honor that courage. Remind yourself it's okay. So simply put, it feels bad to be wrong. It feels bad to fall off the bike and steam your knee too. We wouldn't just ignore the boo-boo when you fall off the bike. We shouldn't ignore the feelings when we feel wrong. We would put a Band-Aid, we'd wash that boo-boo, we'd put a Band-Aid on it and then go on. If your first reaction to being wrong is to feel shame or humiliation, you're suffering a psychic boo-boo. When a kid gets that Band-Aid on their skinned knee, they either get back on the bike or they find something else that helps them feel better. Sometimes it's a cookie. I'm not sure I always recommend that, but it could be a cannonball in the pool. Whatever the grown-up equivalent is for you is what you should do. The point is, you need to feel and express compassion for your mistake. It happened. It hurt. But it doesn't have to be devastating. It was a moment of wrong. You are not wrong. You should just go jump in the pool. We also should practice open mindedness. And really, it's as simple as listening to others, weighing and valuing their opinions, and in every engagement, trying to learn something from the person you're with, and really from everyone you meet. If you were right all the time, you would have no need to be with others. You could talk to yourself all day in your glorious rightness and be profoundly bored, but you would feel good because you were right. And the people around you, who needs to talk to them, they may not be right, or they may tell you worse, that you're wrong. You've likely heard that many successful people say that they surround themselves with people who are smarter than themselves. That's because growth comes from closing the gaps between what you know and what you don't. When we are wrong and someone points it out, that's a moment to be cherished, because it means that it gives you the opportunity to challenge your own assumptions. It's an opportunity to grow. You may not ultimately agree with the other person's viewpoint, but in the process of listening and evaluating, you will learn both about them and how they think, as well about yourself. In truly considering their perspective, you may feel your point of view shift, but even if you don't, you will have a deeper understanding. You will know something in a deeper way than you did before. And that will lead to you re-examining your position. You need to stop spinning your wheels, if you will, and be like Socrates and ask questions. Start a dialogue. So it's not unusual for humans to want to defend their position, but imagine you are a car stuck in the mud, and I'm sure we've all been there. You can keep hitting the gas to try and get unstuck, but that never works. You can pull the car forward and then back into the reverse, and all it does is it gets you further stuck and frustrated. Sometimes the best recourse is to simply stop and ask for help. Challenge your own assumptions. Ask how someone else views the situation. Keep asking until you know something new. And in the process, again, you're going to likely learn something that may bolster a relationship that could have gone south, or that leads you to examine your work in a different way and drives you forward, versus being stuck in that rut that spinning your wheels will never get you out of. And then finally, acknowledge and move forward. Own the wrong, make it right, and move on. There's nothing more disarming in a challenging situation where you said or did something that was wrong, you made some kind of mistake, than when someone simply stops, considers, and acknowledges the wrong. How often do we hear or say, I was wrong? Think about those words. I was wrong. The very statement, I was wrong, puts it in the past. I made a mistake, past tense. By acknowledging the error, you put it in the past. That gives you the permission to address the steps you need to take to make it right and move forward. The goal is to aim for success, save valuable relationships, and move on. And there I will pause to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Amy. Real quick, before we jump into the question and answer part of things, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the way in which you like to serve clients outside of this presentation?
Absolutely. So I love to work with clients who are making transitions in their life, whether it is enhancing their leadership capability to be able to move on and lead people in the organizations that they work on, whether they're making career transitions, or even if they're thinking about making a move in their lives. Most of my work is in career and leadership. And it's all about people making the moves and discovering the strengths that they have that will take them to their next place. Very often, I'm working with people who are not just looking to change a job, but literally looking to change the entire path of their career, to discover something new that they have never discovered before. And what I love about it is the journey that we all go on when we're discovering what their purpose is and what excites them, and then matching it to their strengths. It brings me great joy when people find that aha moment.
Thank you so much for that. If anyone wants to continue conversation further, I'm going to redrop the link to both my calendar as well as our website. And then additionally, I'm going to add the links to our YouTube channel where you can see previous recordings, as well as the Eventbrite links for future recordings. So if you have any interest, we'd love to see you at some more events. And then as a reminder, you do get your first session free if you do mention that you came to us from a webinar, so something to keep in mind. And then with that being said, I guess we can open the floor for some question and answers. If anyone is comfortable and wants to come off of mute, you're more than welcome to ask your question, or if you prefer to type it in the chat, we can do it that way as well. But the floor is yours for whoever would like to speak.
I can't believe I've answered everyone's questions about being wrong.
It could be about anything Amy also just mentioned, as well as, besides this presentation.
Yeah.
And then as a reminder, the presentation will be sent out to everyone tomorrow. So you can get a look out for that in your inbox. But if it looks like there's no questions, I guess we can give everyone back a little bit of their day. We do thank you again so much for being here with us today. We look forward to seeing you at future events, and don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Amy and I would love to assist you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.